My daughter called me in the middle of my mom's birthday party, her voice sharp, trembling. "Mom, leave the house, now." At first, I thought I misheard her because the room around me was full of laughter, clinking glasses, and the sound of a birthday song still hanging in the air. My mom was glowing in the center of the table, opening gifts with a big smile, while my brother was telling another loud joke. Everything looked normal on the surface, but my daughter's words sliced through it like glass breaking. I froze, phone in my hand, eyes moving across the faces in the room. She had never sounded like that before. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't the type to play games. If she used that tone, something was very, very wrong. I remembered how just an hour earlier we were taking pictures of Mom with her cake, candles flickering, her eyes bright with joy. For a fleeting second, I let myself believe we were an ordinary family, whole and safe. But that illusion never lasted long. Underneath the smiles, there had always been cracks, resentment, old fights, unspoken betrayals. And now, my daughter was telling me to get out. My heart began to pound in my chest so loudly I thought someone would notice. I excused myself from the table, saying I needed to grab more plates from the hallway. Once I was alone, I quickly texted back, "Why? What's happening?" Her reply came instantly. "He's there." I read those words again and again, the chill spreading down my spine. Who was he? And what was he doing in my mother's house, surrounded by people pretending everything was fine? I stood frozen in the hallway, staring at those two words on the screen. He's there. My throat went dry, and for a second I couldn't breathe. I forced myself to glance back into the dining room, peeking past the doorway as if I might suddenly notice a stranger among the familiar faces. But all I saw was my family carrying on as if nothing were wrong. Mom laughing too brightly, my brother pouring himself another glass of wine, the cousins busy scrolling on their phones. Normal. Perfectly normal. And yet, the longer I watched, the more I noticed the cracks. My brother's laugh was too forced. Mom's eyes darted toward the door every few seconds. And my aunt hadn't touched a single bite of food. It was like everyone knew something I didn't. My phone buzzed again, in my hand. Another message from my daughter. "Don't ask questions. Just leave." I felt my knees weaken. Leave? Walk out in the middle of my mother's birthday? The thought was absurd, but something inside me screamed to listen. I thought back to that morning when I'd missed her call, when she'd texted, "Be careful today, Mom." I had brushed it off, blaming teenage mood swings. Now it was too late to ignore the pieces coming together. I walked down the hallway slowly, pretending to head toward the kitchen, but my eyes scanned every shadow, every door left ajar. The air in the house felt heavier than usual, thick with tension, as though the walls themselves were holding back secrets. Then I heard it. The faint creak of the back door opening, followed by footsteps that didn't belong to anyone sitting at that table. My blood turned to ice. I gripped the counter for balance and fought the urge to run. Instead, I lowered my phone, typing a single word back to my daughter. "Who?" Seconds later, her reply appeared on the screen. "Your ex." My stomach dropped. As the words slammed into me so hard I almost dropped the phone. He wasn't supposed to be anywhere near us. There were restraining orders, police reports, months of silence that I thought meant safety. The last time I saw him, his face twisted with rage as officers pulled him away. I swore I'd never let him back into my world. Yet here I was, standing in my mother's hallway with my daughter warning me that he was in the house. I steadied my breathing, forcing myself not to panic. If he was here, that meant someone had let him in. Someone at that table, laughing and drinking, had chosen to invite him. I thought about my brother's sudden shift in tone, the way he avoided eye contact earlier, how Mom had insisted I absolutely couldn't skip this party no matter what. My mind raced. Had this all been planned? Was this gathering just a cover? I leaned closer to the kitchen doorway, straining to catch every sound. The voices in the dining room grew softer, as if they were waiting for something, or someone. Then, footsteps echoed from the back of the house, deliberate and slow, moving toward the dining room. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. A man's silhouette passed the hallway, taller than anyone else in my family, broad-shouldered, unmistakable. I felt the years collapse in a single heartbeat, the slammed doors, the bruises I had hidden, the nights I held my daughter while she cried. In silence, it was him. He was here. My phone buzzed again, my daughter's message flashing on the screen like a lifeline. Get out now. Through the front. Don't look back. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to move. Every instinct screamed to obey. Her to bolt before he saw me. Yet as I reached for the doorknob, I heard his voice float from the dining room, low and steady, the same voice that had once controlled every corner of my life. Where is she? That voice cut straight through me, pulling me back to nights I'd worked so hard to forget. My hand hovered on the doorknob, slick with sweat, but my legs refused to move. I could hear chairs shifting in the dining room, the scrape of wood against tile, people adjusting themselves as if preparing for a show. My mother's tone, falsely sweet, followed his question. She's around here somewhere. Don't worry, she can't hide. The betrayal in those words burned hotter than the fear. My own mother, the woman I had defended, cared for, sacrificed, sleep and savings for, had aligned herself with him. My chest tightened until it felt impossible to breathe. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to stay invisible. My phone buzzed again, but this time I didn't dare look. Every sound felt amplified, the tick of the clock in the hallway, the hum of the refrigerator, even the faint rattle of my own breath. Then came the footsteps again, heavier, closer, stopping only a few feet away on the other side of the wall. She always runs, his voice growled. She always thinks she can outsmart me. My heart pounded so violently I thought it might echo into the room. But then, something shifted inside me. Fear turned into something colder, sharper. Rage. I had spent years letting him dictate whether I felt safe, letting my family dismiss my pain as exaggeration, letting everyone else decide what my story was. Not this time. I pulled the phone from my pocket, hit record, and then sent a single message to my daughter, call 911, now. I held the phone low by my side, recording every word, every step, every breath. My body was trembling, but my mind had never felt sharper. If he found me now, at least the truth would be captured. Evidence. Proof that none of them could twist against me later. I heard my brother whisper something I couldn't make out, and then my ex's voice rose louder, commanding, "You think you can hide behind your family? They belong to me, too." My blood ran cold. That was when I realized this wasn't just about me. It never had been. He wanted control over all of us, to step back into our lives like he'd never been forced out. And Mom, she was letting him. I bit down hard, tasting metal, every muscle in my body bracing for the moment he would turn the corner. My phone buzzed once. A reply from my daughter. "Police are on the way." Hold on. Relief flooded me, but it was fragile, flickering like a candle in a storm. Because now the seconds stretched unbearably long, and each one felt like a countdown. Then, suddenly, silence. No voices, no footsteps, just a stillness that made the hairs on my neck rise. I risked leaning forward, peering around the frame of the doorway. The dining room was half empty, chairs pushed back, plates abandoned. My mother sat rigid at the head of the table, her eyes locked on the hallway, waiting. And then I heard it, the creak of the floorboard directly behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly dropped the phone, and there he was, just a few feet away, blocking the narrow hallway, his shadow swallowing the light. His face hadn't changed, the same twisted smirk, the same eyes that once studied me like prey. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. My throat tightened, but I forced myself not to step back, not to give him the satisfaction of seeing fear. He leaned closer, voice low and taunting. "You thought you could erase me, but I always find you." The words slithered into my ears, familiar and poisonous, but I held my ground. My phone was still recording at my side, hidden by my body. My daughter's voice echoed in my memory. "Leave the house. Now." My every instinct screamed to run, but my rage rooted me in place. I steadied my voice, whispering through clenched teeth, "You don't get to control me anymore." His grin faltered, just for a second, before he stepped forward. And then, cutting through the tension like a blade, came the sound of sirens. Outside, growing louder, closer, flashing red and blue through the curtains in the front room. His head jerked toward the noise, confusion flashing across his face. I tightened my grip on the phone, ready to move, ready to fight if I had to. Because this time I wasn't the one cornered, this time I had backup on the way. The sirens were deafening now, their flashes painting the walls red and blue. My ex's eyes darted toward the front door, then back to me, his expression twisting into something dark, feral. He hissed, "You called them, didn't you?" His hand twitched like he was about to grab me, but I didn't flinch. I held the phone up, screen glowing, the recording still running. "It's over," I said, my voice low but steady. For the first time in years, I saw hesitation in his face. Heavy pounding rattled the door, followed by the sharp command of officers shouting for entry. My mother's voice broke out from the dining room, panicked and trembling. "Wait! No! Don't!" But it was too late. The front door crashed open, and uniformed officers poured inside, weapons drawn, voices echoing through the house. My ex stepped back, hands raised halfway in the air, his bravado collapsing in an instant. "This is a mistake," he tried to say, but the officers didn't hesitate. They pinned him against the wall, his wrists forced into cuffs as he spat curses that bounced off the plaster. I stood rooted in the hallway, the phone still recording, my chest heaving, my pulse wild. One of the officers looked at me, recognition flickering in his eyes as if he'd read my reports, my history, every plea I'd filed years ago. "You're safe now," he said firmly. But my gaze slid past him, locking onto my mother and brother, standing pale and still in the dining room. Safe? No. This was only the beginning. The officers dragged him toward the door, his curses filling the air like poison, but my eyes never left my mother. She stood there clutching the back of her chair, knuckles white, her lips pressed tight as though she were the one who had been wronged. My brother shifted uncomfortably beside her, unable to meet my gaze. That was when the truth struck me harder than anything else. This hadn't been an accident. It had been a setup. They had invited him. They had planned for me to be cornered, silenced, maybe even forced back into his grip. And they hadn't expected my daughter to see through it. An officer asked if I wanted to press charges. I answered without hesitation, my voice ringing clear in the heavy silence. "Yes, every single charge you can." My mother flinched as though the words had cut her, but I didn't look away. For years, she'd told me I was exaggerating, that I had to forgive, that family comes first. But what she meant was that his comfort came before my safety. Not anymore. As they pulled him outside and the night air rushed into the house, I finally took a breath that didn't feel stolen. I raised the phone still recording and ended the file, saving it like a weapon, like armor. Evidence not just against him, but against everyone who had stood by and opened the door. The front door slammed shut behind the officers, his voice still echoing faintly as they shoved him into the patrol car outside. For a moment, the house was silent, broken only by the faint ticking of the old wall clock. I stood in the middle of the hallway, phone still clutched in my hand, my chest rising and falling like I had just run miles. My mother finally spoke, her voice sharp, accusing. "How could you do this to us? On my birthday?" I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound that surprised even me. "Do this to you?" I repeated slowly, my eyes locking onto hers. "You invited him. You let him into this house? And you think I'm the one who ruined your night?" Her face flushed with anger, but there was something else there too. Fear. She hadn't expected me to fight back, to have proof, to finally stand my ground. My brother muttered something about making a scene, but I cut him off, stepping forward so they could see the fury in my eyes. "I want you both to understand something," I said, my voice calm but razor sharp. "I am done being your scapegoat. I am done protecting you from the consequences of your choices. Tonight, you showed me exactly where your loyalty lies, and it isn't with me." Their silence was answer enough. I turned away, walking toward the door with my head high, my daughter's words still in my mind. "Leave the house. Now." And for the first time, I listened. The night air hit me like a release, cool and sharp against my burning skin. Outside, the flashing lights painted the street. Neighbors peering from behind curtains, whispers carrying in the dark. My ex was being shoved into the back of a squad car, still shouting, still insisting he would fix this. But his words no longer had power. I stood at the edge of the porch, breathing deeply, as if every exhale pushed years of fear out of my body. Then my phone buzzed again. It was my daughter. "Are you safe?" I typed back quickly. "Yes, because of you." My hands trembled, not from fear now, but from the realization that she had seen the danger long before I had allowed myself to. She had become the protector I used to be. And in that moment, I understood something clearly. I wasn't just leaving the house tonight. I was leaving the cycle. I walked down the steps, past the officers, past the flashing lights, past everything that had chained me to that family's version of loyalty. Behind me, I could still hear my mother calling my name, her voice desperate, demanding, as though she had the right to pull me back inside. I didn't turn around. Instead, I slid into my car, started the engine, and drove away. With every mile, the weight lifted a little more. My daughter's words echoed in my head, guiding me forward. "Leave the house. Now." And I knew I wasn't just leaving a house. I was leaving them all behind. The farther I drove, the quieter the world became, the flashing lights fading into the distance until it was just me, the dark road, and the hum of the engine. For the first time in years, there was no one breathing down my neck, no one dictating my choices, no one twisting love into chains. I pulled over at a gas station miles away, the neon buzzing overhead, and finally let myself exhale. My hands shook as I replayed the recording on my phone. His voice, my mother's betrayal, every sound captured with perfect clarity. This was no longer just my word against theirs. This was evidence. This was protection. My phone lit up again with another message from my daughter. "Come home. I made tea. We'll be okay now." Tears blurred my vision as I typed back, "I'm on my way." And in that moment, I realized I didn't need their approval, their warped idea of family, their endless demands for forgiveness. I had my daughter, and she had me. That was enough. More than enough. I started the car again, driving not just toward her, but toward a future I had thought I'd never deserve. A future where my voice mattered, where my safety wasn't negotiable, where leaving wasn't weakness, but survival. My daughter's warning had saved me, but my choice to finally listen had set me free. And as the road stretched out ahead, endless and open, I whispered the words that would carry me forward. "We're not going back." By the time I pulled into my driveway, the adrenaline had worn off. leaving a heavy exhaustion in its place. My daughter was waiting by the window, her face pale but determined, and the moment she saw my car, she rushed out the front door, barefoot, straight into my arms. I held her tighter than I ever had, breathing in the safety of that embrace, the truth that no matter what storms had come before, we had survived this one together. "I thought I lost you," she whispered into my shoulder, her voice breaking. I shook my head, steady, resolute. "You saved me," I told her. "You saved us both." Inside, the tea she promised sat cooling on the table, untouched, but it felt like a sacred offering, proof that this house, our house, was where love lived, not fear. I sat with her in the quiet kitchen, the hum of the fridge the only sound, and for the first time in years, silence didn't feel dangerous. It felt like peace. My phone kept buzzing with calls I refused to answer, family members demanding explanations, messages already piling up with accusations and guilt trips. I let them ring. That wasn't my burden anymore. My daughter reached across the table, taking my hand. "We're really free now, aren't we?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I nodded, squeezing her hand, my voice steady as steel. "Yes. And we're never letting them back in." The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, phone calls with detectives, and long hours sitting across from lawyers who nodded knowingly as I handed them the recording. Each time I replayed it, my stomach twisted, but I didn't look away. I wanted it etched into the record forever, their voices, their schemes, his threats. My mother tried calling every day, her messages swinging wildly between fury and desperation. One minute she demanded I retract everything, insisting I had misunderstood what she'd done. The next, she begged me not to tear the family apart. But the truth was, the family had been broken long before this night. They had just never expected me to stop patching the cracks for them. My brother sent me one single text. "You didn't have to do this." I never replied because he was wrong. I did have to. For myself. For my daughter. For the years I'd lost pretending their betrayal wasn't betrayal. For the nights I lay awake listening for footsteps, waiting for doors to slam, convincing myself that survival was enough. Now, survival wasn't enough. I wanted freedom, and I had it. My ex was denied bail after the officers brought up his history, the restraining order, the threats. This time, the system didn't turn a blind eye. I showed up in court weeks later, my daughter by my side, my hands steady as I testified. The recording played, his voice filling the courtroom, and for once, he wasn't the one in control. His face went pale when the judge spoke of sentencing. And in that moment, I realized the shift that had taken place, not just in the law, but in me. I wasn't the hunted anymore. I was the one drawing the line. At home, I began to rebuild, not just a life, but a sense of self I had long buried under guilt and fear. My daughter and I made new routines, cooking together, taking long evening walks, laughing at silly shows, without the shadow of someone listening, judging, waiting to strike. Each small moment felt like reclaiming something that had been stolen from us. Some nights, when the memories pressed heavy against my chest, I would sit on the porch and remind myself out loud, "We're safe now. We chose this. We left the house, and we're never going back." The words became a mantra, a promise, a vow, carved deeper with each passing day. I know some people will never understand why I cut my family off so completely. They'll whisper that I was cruel, that I should have forgiven, that family is everything. But I've learned something sharper, truer. Family is not the people who share your blood. It's the people who protect it. And when blood turns toxic, when love becomes a weapon, walking away is not cruelty. It is survival. It is revenge in its purest form. Living free, untouchable, untangled from their chains. Now, when I look at my daughter, I see strength reflected back at me. She was the one who warned me, who saw the danger I had blinded myself to. She was my lifeline that night, but she is also the reason I will never again ignore my instincts. Together, we closed the door on a past that nearly consumed us. Together, we stepped into a future where our safety, our peace, is not up for debate. And sometimes, when I catch myself wondering if I was too harsh, if I went too far, I remember the sound of his voice in that hallway, asking, "Where is she?" I remember my mother's cold betrayal, my brother's silence. And then I remember my daughter's urgent voice, the one that saved me. "Leave the house. Now." So I did. And I will never, ever go back. Tell me, did I finally go too far, or not? Nearly far enough? This story was created by me, the author behind the channel Revenge with Sarah. If you felt the tension, the betrayal, and the moment of power when everything turned, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Did she go too far, or not? Far enough? Share your opinion below, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next story of love, lies, and revenge.